For you, it's been like a week since you last saw me on this channel, but for me, it's been 4 weeks. I was actually on holiday and I ended up pre-recording all of the videos that you've basically seen in August. They were all pre-recorded, so it feels so weird to be in front of a camera again speaking. But today we are back with a more of a fun video, also for me, like a fun way to get back into recording these videos. And today we're talking about the fiction books that I recommend for each of the zodiac signs. Some of them I have read, some of them I have not read, but by reading the descriptions of them, I do see some type of appeal in them for the specific zodiac signs. And don't worry, I will also post the book cover right here on screen as well, so that you're able to identify it easier when you decide to purchase it. And of course, I'm still doing my 2,000 subscriber giveaway. To enter the giveaway, all you have to do is press subscribe, and one lucky winner will get a free reading of their choice. Let's jump into it. And in advance, sorry for every author whose name I butcher today. But for the Aries, we have a Project Hail Mary by Andrew Weir. And I gotta say, when I was reading the description of this book, it sounded like the perfect sort of mission. Time is running out. We need to do things. We need to save the world. And every Aries needs a little bit of adventure in their life, and especially if you're an Aries that has maybe fallen into the routine of daily life and are maybe feeling a bit bored, reading an exciting book such as this one should help you feel like you have some of that adrenaline and energy pumping through your body again. For Taurus, my fiction book recommendation is Buckeye by Patrick Ryan. When I was reading the book description for this one, I heard words such as warmth, love, connection, and of course, goodness. And all of those words made me think of Taurus and how sometimes Taurans love a good story where it seems like things are simple, but yet they're deeply connected. And there's this sort of underlying theme of the goodness of humanity, the fact that at the end of the day, we're all one and the same. So I think this book should be a perfect sort of unraveling and demonstration of the human spirit that my peace-loving Taurans will absolutely love. For my Geminis, we have The Names by Florence Knopp. And of course, I had to pick a book that was all about language, words, communication for my Mercury-ruled Geminis. This is a quite interesting book, sort of talking about the premise of like how could our life look if we ended up having a different first name that was given to us. And I think it's such an interesting premise. And I think Geminis and their quick minds should be one of the few signs of the zodiac that can keep up with all of the different storylines that are going on in this book. And that will probably find it really interesting to think about this concept of, what is in a name? And how would the lives of the characters and my life look different if we had different names? For Cancer, my recommendation is Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. Both of the characters in this book are basically learning how to learn to open their heart again and how to learn to love again after being hurt, after their hopes being crushed. And I think this is a perfect storyline that Cancers will relate to. This idea that it's a dangerous and scary world out there, but if we don't open ourselves up, if we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we also miss out on some beautiful connections. So Cancers, I think this is probably a really sweet, a really gentle book, and probably a book that will really speak to your heart. My Leos, this is finally the first book that I'm recommending that I have actually read. This is My Friends by Frederick Backman. And actually, maybe it's not a coincidence that I'm a Leo rising and I loved this book. It's a book that's about friendship and it's a book that's about loyalty, which I think would really speak to the heart-centered Leos. It's also a book about expressing yourself, finding your own voice, not being afraid to be who you are. And again, for the Leos that love to express themselves and maybe sometimes struggle with getting acknowledgement for their unique talents, I think this should be a perfect book. My Virgos, the recommendation for a book that you should read this upcoming fall is The Invisible Life of Audie Laurie, and this is written by V.E. Schwab. I gotta say, if there's anybody that would trade something for being able to live forever, it would probably be Virgo. You have so many things to do, so many things to achieve, that probably you have sometimes thought about needing a little bit more time than, our standard 80, 90, 100 years. I think this book presents a really interesting premise that you, Virgo, will probably relate to very deeply. And this sort of striving to leave a mark on your world and to make yourself heard and seen and acknowledged. I think that's something for Virgos that love to serve, that love to be useful, would also be something very relatable. For Libras, my recommendation is Anxious People by Frederick Backman. After having enjoyed My Friends by Frederick Backman, I kind of also want to read this one, but especially for Libras, it sounds really interesting. Libras are the sign of the zodiac that can really understand the dichotomies of life and that can really understand multiple sides of a story. They sometimes find it quite hard to distinguish good from bad because they can understand how both of them could relatively be seen as something productive or good, depending on how you look at them. And in this book, Anxious People, we get this really interesting dichotomy of a robber who is holding people hostage. And as he's doing that, secrets get revealed and he starts to sort of wonder, maybe it's better I go outside and give myself over to the police than be in the room with these essentially crazy people. And I feel like Libra, you would be the perfect sign who would be able to understand these complex emotions of sometimes there is a robber in all of us, deep inside. For Scorpios, I recommend Deadly Storms by Christine Fahan. I mean, Scorpios, do I have to say more? This book is all about secrets. It's all about our shadows and the main character sort of pretending that she doesn't have those. But then from what I can glean from the description, those eventually do come out and come back to her and make her face them again. And Scorpios, you love a good mystery. You love looking at the shadows that we all have. So I feel like this book should be quite entertaining to read. Sagittarius, for you, I recommend Leave Me Behind by K.M. Morinova. This is a book that is a bit about freedom. We're talking about a main character who ends up sleeping with basically who she finds out is her enemy a bit later. Again, I only read the back of the book, so don't quote me if I'm wrong on that. But I think for you, Sagittarius, as somebody that loves freedom, as somebody that believes in having faith and hope, I think this could be a book that you find very interesting to read. Capricorns, for you, I recommend Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I really hope I pronounced the name of this book right. If not, let me know down in the comments. First of all, I was thinking okay, maybe this is not a book for Capricorn because it does have these sort of magical components to it. But I decided to go for it because in general, this book is all about the main character having a great mission and going to great lengths to achieve it. And I think if any of the zodiacs are going to relate to it, it's definitely going to be Capricorn. All right, Aquarius. Maybe again, it's not a coincidence that I recommend this to you, as I am also an Aquarius sun and I read this book and I absolutely loved it. It's one of the few books that was really stuck in my mind for a while after I finished it. And this is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. Probably you've heard this one, especially if you're into books and reading. I think it's been quite popular. But this whole premise of looking ahead, or sort of, we should say, looking back on what our life could have looked like if we made different decisions, I think that's a really interesting premise for our Aries Aquarius to chew on. And Aquarius, I think you value freedom, and you often find it maybe difficult to make choices because they might have implications on how others see you. But I do think at the end of the day, this book will help all Aquarians with their mission of, no matter which choice they make in life, they should make the one that aligns the closest to them and makes them the happiest. So in general, I think this is a wonderful book for Aquarius. And Pisces, my recommendation for you is The Surrogate Mother by Frida McFadden. I feel like in general, just the whole concept of a surrogate is perfect for our boundaryless Pisces. This whole concept of another human carrying inside them your child is, I think, something that Pisces would find quite fascinating, this blurring of lines between yours and mine. But in general, this book is quite mysterious. It turns out that the surrogate mother is not who she says she is. And I do think that sort of these themes of the boundaries and the crossing of boundaries that will probably be explored in this book, I don't know entirely because I haven't read it. I think that is something that Pisces would probably find really fascinating to read, and it might even challenge some of their beliefs, and it might make them really reflect on their own boundaries in their own life and where they set them. So those are my recommendations for the fiction books for the zodiac signs. Here in the Northern Hemisphere, it's getting colder. I even wore my sweater today for this video. So I hope that this gives you something nice to do when you are indoors this fall season. Let me know down below if you have a recommendation for one of the zodiac signs, or perhaps what your zodiac sign is and what is a book that you have really enjoyed reading. Thanks for joining me. Remember to subscribe to enter the giveaway, and I hope to see you again soon.